Hey friends, welcome into an all-new episode of the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. You can find the podcast at Pack a Day Podcast. Just want to say a quick thank you again. Our numbers have been incredible, both on the audio side and on YouTube as well. So appreciate you guys so much for that. Whether you're here daily or once in a while, or you're here for the first time, thank you so much for checking it out and making Pack a Day hopefully part of your daily routine. Again, we've got you covered 365 days a year. In just a moment, we're going to be chatting with Mike Wahle. If you missed yesterday's live episode with Mike, I highly recommend checking that out. But we'll get into a lot of Packers Lions, kind of state of the team, as well as looking ahead to Packers and Bears on today's show. Before we get there, shout out to brand new Pack a Day podcast All Pro member Christian Bradley. Christian, thank you so much for signing up. Appreciate that a ton. If you would be so kind as to check out those memberships, also like, subscribe, comment, and give those 5-star reviews. That helps us a ton. We did have some interesting news and notes before we get to Mike. We did get confirmation from Matt LaFleur that Devonte Wyatt is in fact out for the season. So not great news, but expected news. We kind of knew that going in, but an unfortunate confirmation from Matt LaFleur. You always hold out hope that, you know, as soon as maybe you talk to Matt, or like he updates us after the fact, that maybe there's that sliver of hope that it wasn't as bad as they thought it was. But unfortunately, in this case, it was as bad. And again, Devonte Wyatt confirmed out for the year. On the good news side of things, Micah Parsons is the third overall player in Pro Bowl voting, for whatever that's worth. To some of you, I'm sure that that's cool and it matters. Pro Bowl voting as like an honor is cool. Like, it's fun to see who ultimately gets honored with Pro Bowl votes. It's not always a great system, we know that, or whatever, but cool for Micah that he's third overall. The Pro Bowl games, personally, to me, don't mean a whole heck of a lot of anything, but cool that Micah is number 3 nonetheless. From a transaction standpoint, the Packers did release wide receiver Will Shepherd. My guess is they're going to want him back in the practice squad. That will take another move there to get him back in the practice squad. But for now, they did release him from the active roster. And then we got some good news and some bad news on the injury front. Let's get to the bad news first. Per Rob Demovsky, LVN was in a walking boot on Monday. Not what you want to hear from LVN, especially with Wyatt being out as well. Defensive end is fine. You've got Rashawn Gary and Igbar's playing well. Of course, Micah Parsons. You know, you've got Baron Sorrell. You still have Aaron Mosby. You're in a decent spot, right? But with Wyatt out, we talked about it. One of the ways that you can mitigate that loss is by kicking LVN inside in some obvious passing downs. And if LVN is going to be a while yet, that potentially takes that option away as well. You don't want to be without both Devonte Wyatt and LVN. Let's just put it that way. And right now, we know Wyatt's out for the year, and looks like LVN may not be as close to returning as maybe we hoped, and certainly the Packers hoped that he was going to be when they brought him back a couple weeks ago. And to be fair, listen, I would love to not have to bring this up, but this seems to be another instance of the Packers bringing back an injured player too soon. And I know that these things are an inexact science. We've talked about it at length here before, of there's that gray area of hurt and injured. And if you think you can play and you want to play, and the medical staff is clearing them, guys have to go out there and try and see if they can play. It just is sort of the nature of the beast. But Green Bay has not had a great track record as of late of bringing guys back, and too often it's come back a little bit too early. It seems like that was the case, not only with really LVN, but there's two more too. Like Carl Brooks came back for 6 snaps in that, the first game on Sunday against Minnesota, and then he didn't play on Thursday against Detroit. Savion Williams played the prior couple weeks with that foot injury, thankfully against New York, because he made that huge play. Again, I don't know if there's a setback there. There's a lot of nuance that goes into this, but he was not good to play last week. So again, I don't know if Green Bay's maybe pushing the envelope a little bit too much. Again, some of that almost needs to be done at times, but again, the track record as of late with bringing guys back hasn't always been great for Green Bay. Again, I hate to say that. It's a tough situation. I don't know the medicals or anything like that. They could have been right on 100% of these, going back to Jair and Watson and Love and whatever, based on the medical in front of them. But it's been a bit of a trend as of late for Green Bay. There is good news, though. There is good news. 3 players from injured reserve opened up their 21-day practice window, or PUP. They're a little bit of both here, right? But Marshawn Lloyd, Colin Oliver, and Bretton Cox all have 21 days to get ready to play and hopefully activated to the active roster. Now, just because Green Bay opened up their 21-day window does not mean that they are guaranteed to return. There could always be a setback, but even beyond that, there were a couple instances lately. The Philadelphia Eagles opened up the IR window for Willie Lampkin and let him practice for the 21 days. I think he was even listed as a full participant at times. And by the time the 21-day window expired, they didn't put him on the active roster and put him back on injured reserve. Corey Trice for Pittsburgh was very similar. I think Trice may have had a bit of a setback, but they opened up his 21-day window, and at the end of it, he wasn't ready to go, and they shut him down for the rest of the year. So just because any of these three players got their 21-day window open, it does not necessarily mean that they will ever get activated to the active roster, but it looks, at least on the surface, like a good step for all three players nonetheless. And if nothing else, they'll get 3 weeks to practice and prove, at least try to prove, that they're ready to go and ready to play. What also complicates this a little bit is that Green Bay would need to make corresponding roster moves here. Now, they have one roster spot open. We talked about that earlier from Will Shepard, right? So that's one open roster spot. They also have Devontae Wyatt, who will eventually go on IR, I would assume, as soon as Tuesday, and that will open a second roster spot. However, Jaden Reed could be back as soon as this week, and either way, that 21-day window is closing very soon for Jaden Reed, so they're going to have to put him on the active roster pretty soon, regardless, because they're not going to want to shut him down for the year, right? So they'll put him on the active roster almost no matter what. So that will leave you with one open roster spot, but you have Marshawn Lloyd, Colin Oliver, and Brenton Cox. If all three were able to come back, you still have two spots that you would need. So who would get released in that scenario? The first thing to note is that you could have injuries over the next couple weeks that open those spots organically, right? But if not, four guys I would keep an eye on. Malik Heath, you would have a full 6 wide receiver roster once you bring back Jaden Reed, and you still have Bo Melton as a 7th. You probably don't need Heath as an 8th. That would be one to keep an eye on. Donovan Jennings, I don't think it would be Jennings. He's your 9th offensive lineman. I don't think they're going to go down to 8 on the active roster. Now, there's a good chance that they feel like they could get Donovan Jennings back on the practice squad and they could use 3 call-ups if need. Like, they don't need to call him up because they have 8 guys right now. If somebody got hurt, they still have 3 call-ups available. So they could probably get by with it. But man, that leaves you razor thin on the offensive line, especially if Jennings were to get claimed somewhere. I don't think they go in that direction, but they still have Brant Banks. Like, they could just, do they really care if it's Jennings or Banks as the 9th guy? I'm not sure how much they would at that point. That could be one other one. Christian Welch, although he's a core special teamer, that would be another one to keep an eye on. That would bring them down to only 4 linebackers if Welch was released. And then Aaron Mosby would be the other. And that one probably makes a little bit more sense if you're bringing back both Brenton Cox and Colin Oliver. You're just stacked with defensive ends at that point. And if LVN gets back healthy, I mean, you have too many at that point. You can't have Gary, Parsons, Inigbari, LVN, Barron Sorrell, Aaron Mosby, Colin Oliver, and Brett. You can't have 8 defensive ends on your roster. Like, that's just too many, right? So if you brought back both, you'd probably have to release Aaron Mosby, but Aaron Mosby, also a core special teamer, one of their better ones. So that's an interesting concept as well. Just to reiterate, great news nonetheless that all 3 are practicing. We'll have to see if all 3 actually get added to the active roster at some point in time. And if they do, what sort of roster math Brian Gutekunst is going to have to do. The other thing worth noting is they could still use a defensive tackle as well. They don't have to. They have 4 on the active roster, James Esther on the practice squad. But if they have been activating 5 defensive tackles as of late, you could elevate James Esther up to 3 times. I'm not sure that's what you'd want to do. And if they did want somebody either off of somebody else's practice squad or to bring in a veteran like Montravius Adams or Maurice Hurst or anybody else, you're going to need that roster spot too. So there's going to be some, potential logistical issues that Green Bay could run into from a roster standpoint. And we'll see how Goody manages that. And if, again, Lloyd, Oliver, Brenton Cox could end up back on the active roster or just revert back to IR. Some of you may be thinking, well, Andy Marshawn Lloyd's coming back. Wouldn't you just cut, either Chris Brooks or Emmanuel Wilson? No, I do not think Green Bay is releasing either of those players. I think it's a good stable of running backs, and I just don't think they could trust Marshawn Lloyd either, at least enough to release either of those two, I would be surprised by it. I would be surprised, especially the way Wilson has played. I don't think it'd be him. And Brooks is such a great pass protector. I just don't think that would be on the menu. I think they'd have to go with 4 running backs in that scenario. The other thing I wanted to note here is, and we kind of talked about this on the post-game show the other day, a ton of reinforcements could be coming for Green Bay. Matthew Golden, Matt LaFleur said today that he could be back, at least, it's possible he could be back this week. Jaden Reed said he's going to give him, through the week to try to play this week. We'll see. He has to get cleared yet. Matt mentioned that as well. Quay Walker could be coming back, hopefully sooner rather than later. Nate Hobbs, Savion Williams, Carl Brooks, Marshawn Lloyd, Colin Oliver, Brenton Cox, and hopefully not too long before we see LVN again as well. It's a lot of reinforcements coming, and hopefully as soon as Chicago for multiple of those players on that list. Again, Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed, Quay Walker, Nate Hobbs, Savion Williams, Carl Brooks, LVN, Marshawn Lloyd, Colin Oliver, and Brenton Cox. That's 10 players who are 53-man rosterable, right? And all 10 of them did not play against Detroit this past week when they went into Detroit and got a big win. So they could be getting some help and some injury help, even though at the same time they are losing Devontae Wyatt. Want to shout out Luigi's Pizza. Thank you to Luigi's for sponsoring today's show. It is the holidays. It's a great time to stock up on some additional Luigi's Pizzas. They make great Christmas presents. They make great holiday presents, whatever holiday it is that you're celebrating. You can't put them under the tree. That's one downside, but it's always great to have a few extra pizzas around the house. You're going to end up with guests, or there's going to be some sleepovers with friends, or there's just a lot going on, and it's so easy to pop a Luigi's in the oven and just have a ultra delicious Luigi's pizza right there for you. I would stock up on a bunch of them if I were you, because you've got some victory pizzas coming up as well. So check them out over at luigispizza.com and on social media at Luigi's Pizza. All right, now let's get to the one, the only, the wonderful, the magnificent Mike Wahle. We're being joined now by the one and only Mike Wahle. You can find him on social media at Mike Wahle68, Process to Perform, and of course right here on Pack-A-Day as well. You can find me at Andy Herman NFL. We've got a lot to get into. Packers, Lions, Packers, Bears. If you missed Mike and I in the live show, make sure to check that out. Mike, before we get there though, how are you doing, my friend?
Life is good, Andy. It feels like I just talked to you. But listen, I can't wait to talk about not only the Lions game, but looking forward to this Bears game. This is a fun kind of 10 days of football for Packer fans.
Yeah, I think we're going to probably spend the majority of the time talking about Packers Bears, because that is kind of the fun game to look forward to this week. But Lions already feels like a decade ago after a fun week of football as well. But let's start with Lions quick. What did the film say? What were your kind of key takeaways from that game?
Love starting on offense. Just love that Belton got to play the entire game at offensive line. I think it kind of solidified the. There's still areas of opportunity on that line, but it really solidified the kind of personality that they want to put together. I think, particularly on a road game, short week, the whole thing. It gets quite frankly, like they've got DJ Reader, McNeil, like Agent Hutchinson. They've got good dudes. Their linebackers are really, really good, and we were able to build up enough of a running game to run the kind of offense that Matt LaFleur wants to run, which is use that run as a weapon. You'd love to get as many, big play gashes as you can, but use it to stay ahead of the sticks and keep the defense honest. And I think that is one of the reasons that you saw kind of the game that Jordan Love had is, you force those guys to play their man-to-man. You have a lot of, you have the early deep comeback by Christian Watson, of course, all the crossing routes that we saw during the game. And you love the added physicality and that dimension of trying to finish blocks that, maybe doesn't show up as much on the television, but when you watch the game, just the constant pressure of trying to stay on blocks for a little bit longer and be in a position to do so just really helps with not only just the yards per carry, but it helps with the demeanor of the entire football team. And I know that sounds like there's no way one person makes that big of a difference. It does. It really does, because it adds to what we've been talking about, what Eric Banks has been trying to do, right, with Sean Ryan's entire. You got more people like rowing in the same direction now. So I think that was huge. And then we talked about it on the last show, Andy. Just love what the safety play is for the Green Bay Packers right now. So much fun to see, especially watching on the All-22, is like to see the pattern recognition with those guys, seeing them identify these different route combinations and how they want to attack it from their two shell, or whether they want to play robber, whether they want to poach on the backside. It's really, really cool. And then, you can't say enough about like what a monumental pickup Micah Parsons was, and he just continues to deliver time and time again.
If there were one room that I've probably enjoyed, or if there's one room that I've probably enjoyed watching the most so far this season, it's probably the safety room. I think all of them are playing really good football. Evan Williams, if we're going to put, I know Javon Bullard's in the slot, but if you want to kind of put him in that room as well. And then Xavier McKinney, obviously, who I know isn't getting all the picks and interceptions he did a year ago. There's a reason for that. They don't throw really in his direction, but he's still playing a really good brand of football as well. I love seeing what those guys do on the back end. I was glad to see, I think they talked about it with Brady, that Brady showed him 20 some clips of Evan Williams making a bunch of plays. They talked about it on the broadcast, and I saw a bunch of film breakdowns this week, and I'm glad Evan Williams is getting some of his flowers as well. I know you and I watching tape and have talked about it in the past. This is not something new for him. He's been doing this for a while now, but the safety room is just a ton of fun.
Yeah, they're awesome. And these, it's funny how, the NFL works and all these sports work. It's like in order to get attention, you have to have the opportunity to play in front of a lot of people, right? With a prominent newscaster or broadcaster, and you have to show up in that game. Or they've had to do some research on you to get that film reel together so that they show it no matter what. Like I was watching a game yesterday, and it was like I forgot what the game. Oh, it was the Steelers, and they're talking about TJ Watt. Otherwise, but on the other side, 51's the one making all the plays.
Yep.
But Herbert. But they're like, oh yeah, Herbert got another sack or another pressure. But let's watch this reel on TJ Watt. Man, did you see how it's like they've already got it preset. So sometimes that's why sometimes they say like you don't get your flowers, you don't get your recognition for a year afterwards because they got to figure it out. But you love to see guys take advantage of the opportunity. He certainly has. He's been doing it since day one.
He has. That's what I said the other day. I'm glad that he's getting recognition. He was one of the better safeties in the league as a rookie last year, and he's been doing it since then. So yeah, and I'm also glad. Listen, I love Javon Bullard, one of the bigger Javon Bullard, fan club guys, I guess. But I don't ever want to see Evan Williams off the field. They were rotating those two at safety for a little bit. I just don't ever want to see Evan Williams off the field. I'm cool the way that Bullard's playing right now and how they're utilizing him, but I don't need to see any safety rotation. I'm definitely cool with Williams just staying in there at all times.
Well, and I think that if you have an athletic guy with Bullard, Alabama kind of made this popular is like make that star safety a safety. It doesn't have to be a corner.
Yeah.
Right. And the nickel guy doesn't have to be a corner anymore because that does so much for you in the run game. And a lot of, quite frankly, a lot of these teams are playing like a lot of man zone stuff. So it's a little bit, you don't feel like you're in that slot and you're just all on an island by yourself, which is maybe historically how it started. When I remember when we brought Al Harris over from the Philadelphia Eagles, he was a slot corner.
Yep.
Right. He was a slot guy. And we're like, why do we hire a slot? And they're like, oh, because he can play anywhere. And as it turns out, people are starting to say this too. Like maybe the slot corner is actually the really hard one to play, because there's everywhere to go on the field. But he's done a fantastic job. And yeah, I totally agree with you. Like that room is so much fun to watch. And Evan Williams is just like show me a play where he's not involved. That's what it feels like.
I talked about this. I don't know if it was with you or maybe it was with Justice a couple weeks ago of you can start taking an inventory on every play where if he's not involved in the play, he is damn near close to it. And it's almost shocking when you see a play get made somewhere and Evan Williams isn't in your screenshot somewhere. He is freaking everywhere.
The whole group on that side, we talked about it last week and we were talking about it in contrast to the offense, but the whole group over there just they put in the work. And defenses, you always are like, okay, the defenses are they're dogs. They put in a little more. They're a little bit more aggressive. They're this, they're that. And these guys really are, man. Like they love to play football. They like playing hard. They're physical. There's no players because usually it's your corners and it's not with Valentine and Nixon. The one thing you can say about those guys is if you ask them to come down and hit, they're going to hit. So you've got 11 dudes on the team that are not afraid to lay wood. And that is again, we talked about it just earlier about the offensive side of the football, but if you've got 11 dudes that are willing to hit you at any point, peel you off the pile, hit you in the hole, whatever it is, that changes the way that the individuals on the offense think about the next game. And it's a big deal in football.
People have been talking a lot about the improved run defense, under Jeff Hafley. And one of the very first things I point to is, well, Jeff Hafley got here, and at the same time, Evan Williams, Javon Bullard, and Xavier McKinney got here, and their ability to come and play down from the second level. and help out in run defense and take some of those plays that, hey, they might end up being 10 to 12 yards, but they're not going to end up being 30, 40, 50, 60 yards. Safety is one of those, it doesn't show up a ton on the TV copy. So a lot of people, it goes sometimes unnoticed. And then B, I know when I'm going through and watching play by play, there can be a 8-9 play stretch at times where if you're playing deep safety, you might not even be involved in the play. Like you're playing back there and you're not even, but man, it's one of those things that when you are needed, the stakes are so insanely freaking high. If you miss a tackle, they're gone. If you don't break up a ball, it's a huge reception. And just their ability to not only play run defense, but again, to me, the crux of this defense not giving them up big plays lies within especially Evan Williams and Xavier McKinney on that back end.
Alley tackles during the last DC's tenure were a hallmark of why they were not good.
Yep.
And so there's two things that are obvious, I think, or there's two things that I would look at and go, this is what Jeff Hafley's done really well. One, the safety rotation out of a two shell, because you're starting everything in like a cover 2, cover 4 look, a 2 high look, and the rotation that they use, 19 times out of 20, it feels like they hit it right, like they made the right choice. So yep. Pattern recognition with them is huge. Communication is huge. So that's a coaching thing. That's a Xavier McKinney thing too, but that's a coaching thing. But the other part of it is like when you go in the alley and you got an alley tackle, you got an alley tackle. And they have, whether these guys are natural, great tacklers, or they have made it a part or a point of emphasis in practice. I'm guessing it's both.
Yep.
But you can't have it can't be just one of those things. And so what Hafley has done, and the reason that everyone thinks he's going to be so successful, is his players are smart and they just do the basic. Can I tackle? Right? Can I turn? Can I get in my position? Can I do the basic stuff really well? He does that at an extremely high level, and it's across the board. We're talking about one or two guys right now. It really is across the board.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. It's been a totally different demeanor, level of intensity, all of it since he's come to town. We'll get into it later, but I think the Ben Johnson, Jeff Hafley battle is a ton of fun, and I'm really looking forward to that this week. I just really want to, you mentioned Micah Parsons. I want to talk about those back-to-back plays on Taylor Decker, where Taylor Decker is a really good left tackle. The one where he gets the sack and obliterates him. Mike, the way that he is able to get around the edge, use his hands, and then get around the corner and just obliterate Goff. And Decker, you can tell, is just, and then the very next play,
yeah.
Decker's like worried about getting out. He's going to go outside again. Yeah. And then Micah just comes right inside. And unfortunately, Goff gets the ball out in like a millisecond to his running back on the outside. But you literally see like Decker like on his back feet, like backing up, and Parsons is beelining to the quarterback. Just on back-to-back plays against a really, really good left tackle. I don't know what you do in that situation. I almost felt bad for Taylor Decker.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. But it is like the second play was actually more impressive than the first. And imagine, like, put yourself in that situation for like fans at home. You're out on this field. There's a dude that you're saying this. Okay, this guy runs a 4.3. He's 255 pounds, 260, whatever he is, and he wants to take your $50 million quarterback and put him in the dirt, and you have to backpedal, right, and somehow stay in front of this guy who's got. It seems like he's got all the advantages, and he runs I think he ran like a 4.3 or a 4.4.
It was right around there. Right? Yeah, it was right around there.
So you're like, okay, well, that like when you say it out loud, you go, that is a preposterous situation. Like, why would anybody want to do that? And then so he beats you, right? And he beats you, and you go, oh, there's another down we have to play. Oh, there he is again. You know what I mean? It's like, now What do I do? So imagine like the mental anguish that happens with these guys. It's like, I don't know if you saw the play. I saw maybe the most impressive, like just straight, I'm a better human than you pass rush in my entire life that I've ever seen yesterday. Myles Garrett did a jump, what we call a jump chop, inside on Trent Williams. And he jumped from literally one side of Trent Williams' body all the way to the other. And when he hit the ground, he just went straight forward. Like there was no hesitation. And it was like Trent Williams, who's widely regarded as the best tackle maybe to ever play football, looked like he was like, well, what do you guys want me to do? You know what I mean? Like it would be 100 out of 100 times he would beat the tackle. There's nothing I can, like, I do this for a living. I watched it 10 times last night. I go, I wouldn't know what to say to the guy. It would all be bullshit. Good. It would all be bullshit. Like, oh, move inside faster. There's nothing you can do. That's how some of the Micah Parsons stuff feels. I'm sure to a guy who's not at that level, like Taylor Decker, who's a great player, but you're just going like, what do you want me to do, man? He's a better athlete than I am. It's like, like we can talk about all this stuff. But, that's why it's such a mental game. That's why the mental game is so big, because the first one happens. The second one is all because right here.
You literally beat me to it. I was going to take a timeout and say, just take an aside and say, did you get to watch Myles Garrett versus Trent Williams? Because that's as awesome of a heavyweight fight as you get. And then to see that play, I may have misheard this, but I thought they said on the well, they were announcing it, that the one thing that like Trent Williams said is like, he's not going to beat me inside this week. Or so. I thought I may have completely misheard it, but Myles Garrett got him inside. He's unbelievable. I think is it blasphemy for me to say like the way he's playing right now is the best that position's ever been played in history?
I would. The hard thing about Myles Garrett is that he's on a bad team, but I honestly, because like think about how many chances he doesn't get.
If they were in the lead,
they're always playing a team that can run the ball whenever they want, because they never have to score points.
Yep.
I think he's for me, so. I think John Randall, Warren Sapp, I think of like the best guy, I think of Aaron Donald, Reggie. He's the best, he's the scariest dude that I've ever seen play football. Like for me right now, he's by far the best player in football.
Yep.
Like he's not the best, and he's the best player that's wearing football pads in the NFL right now. There's nobody that is playing like he's playing. It's an absurd level, and to me, it's like that one move. Because I've scouted him for years with my guys, and we've had a lot of success against him. A little bit of bragging, but like we've had a lot of success against him. If he pulled that shit that he pulled yesterday, I would go, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like that was I couldn't believe what I was watching. It was such an insanely athletic move.
Lawrence Taylor, Derek Thomas, two other ones I would throw, at least JJ Watt in the realm as well.
So JJ is the only one I didn't mention. Lawrence Taylor's, it's like different
era. You're
asking for a different thing. He got a lot of, because the outside linebacker thing. Derek Thomas was fantastic, but he really situational. He was like Kabir's, like a situational pass rusher. It was really, really good. JJ Watt was the one though. Yeah, he was special, but I just never seen it. I've never seen it. I don't want to gush over the guy, but Jesus.
No, I'm with you. That's why I said I don't think it's blasphemous to say it's the best that position's ever been played. It's remarkable. I mean, in the most eras, I would say like Micah Parsons is going to be in that conversation for being the best defensive end in like the league, and he's just not, because Myles Garrett exists. It's not that much different, but Garrett's amazing.
I think Parsons. I don't think anybody's on Myles Garrett's level, but I do think for Parsons, coming to a new team, going from the Dallas Cowboys, big trade, go to the Green Bay Packers, and it's like, oh, I want to help in the run game. Jerry Jones is all his stuff. And then, quite frankly, like as well as Parsons has played in every aspect of the game, you could sit here and without raising too many eyebrows, who's playing better than him aside from Myles Garrett? I don't know that anybody is.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody. I mean, we're talking like I don't really buy sack numbers. I mean, they're fun to talk about, but like you have to be a complete player, and sack numbers are somewhat situational. But who's winning? Who's commanding the most respect? Who's he's playing in the run game at a really high level. He's one of. It's like you always say there's one in a million, and you're like, well, there's a lot of millions on the planet. You know what I mean? Well, they're one of a billion, maybe, because these guys are unique.
The only one that would maybe be in the conversation right now for me would be Will Anderson. Like that would probably be the one that, and I don't think he's quite to Micah, but
he's not as good as Micah.
I agree. Yeah. So that's
if you were to game plan him, Andy, you know what I mean? You'd go
yep.
like everything about him. He's such a good player, and I love him. He's such a leader, and like he's amazing, right? But if you were to game plan him, the game plan sheet would be not nearly as big as the Micah Parsons game plan sheet.
But yeah, the stuff that Micah can do, and it was a 4.3940, by the way. I meant to mention that. Yeah, so 4.3940 was the official tested time, and the fact where you can line them up everywhere. Yeah, to me, your first team All-Pro defensive ends are Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons, and I think you submit that ballot, then don't think twice about it.
Absolutely.
We talked about the run defense quite a bit, and specifically losing Devontae Wyatt on the live show. So if you guys missed that conversation, again, make sure to check out the live show. I had that on my list of things to talk about today, but we did talk about that quite a bit on the live. So again, check that out. But what I did want to ask you though, before we get into Packers-Bears, Packers are on a 3-game win streak. Obviously beating the Giants, the Vikings, much less opponents, I guess, than what you would say the Detroit Lions are, than the Lions in that third game. Has there been anything in this 3-game win streak that sticks out to you to say that has you believing more that this team can be a contender? Has there been anything that's been trending in the right direction? Anything that you just feel a little bit more confident in these last few weeks?
Yeah, I put Anthony Belton at right guard. It's simple. That first of all, I think the Lions game was a statement win. We were talking about they need a statement win. This was a statement win. They played well on offense against a good defensive football team. It's hard to play short week, travel to in Thanksgiving to play the Lions in Detroit. It's harder when they're good. But I played them when they were bad, and it was hard.
Yep.
It's harder when they're good. They're playing against a great offense. You know they're going to score some points. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on there, right? This is a good defense. They're well coached. They have had success. So I thought that was a big, big deal. And we talked about the reasons why on the live show. We don't need to go through them again. This defense has continued to show growth and have different players at different times raising their standard to elevate the level of play for the entire team, whether it's Micah Parsons, whether it's Enigbari, whether it's one of those safeties, whether it's Carrington Valentine when he gets to start to come back in, whether it's Nixon on different plays, whether it's obviously Isaiah McDuffie filling in at a really high. Listen, I heard somebody talking about like Isaiah McDuffie needs to get into like the window of the hook route or something like that. We need to replace him. I'm like, first of all, okay, but those are like when teams are running crossers, the linebacker is not going to mirror the guy because of the quarterback size. Watch what Isaiah McDuffie is doing in all aspects of the run and dog game when he puts pressure on the quarterback. Like he is playing high level football, right? And when Quay gets back, does he start automatically? Absolutely, right? He's been our best linebacker this year. But those things, those make you feel like, oh, there's something here. Because those individuals are stepping up and filling that role. And that means you've got a real team here, and that's fun.
I'm with you. Quay's the unquestioned starter when he comes back. Does the play of the linebackers, sans Quay Walker, make you question whether or not you want to give Quay a 4-year, $60 million extension in the offseason, or would you feel comfortable going with McDuffie, Edgerrin Cooper, and Tyron Hopper, and maybe you add another piece in there as like a vet, smaller free agent or a late round linebacker or something like that? Does it change your mind at all on that? Hey friends, it's time to get our sleeper picks in for this huge game between Green Bay and Chicago. I don't know about you guys, but I am having a ton of fun with Sleeper this year. If you haven't tried it yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. This week in this huge matchup, I'm going relatively simple. And this is the beautiful thing. You can mix and match as many of these as you want. I'm going with as little as 2 in this game. You could go, way more than that and mix it up. And there's a lot of different ways that you can get your sleeper picks on. But this week I'm going Jordan Love, more than 212.5 passing yards. I know that Chicago's defense, especially in their defensive backfield, they've got some talented players. They give up yards. It's turnovers how they win. And I expect Green Bay to be able to throw the ball in this game. So more than 212.5 passing yards for Jordan Love. On the flip side, I know that Rome Odunze has become more involved as their tight ends. Of course, Luther Burden as well. But DJ Moore has been a bit of a pain for Green Bay in the past. 26.5 is not a ton of receiving yards. I'm going more than 26.5 receiving yards for DJ Moore. Here's the best part. If you haven't tried this yet, Now is the perfect time. You can get a 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code PACKADAY. Yes, 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code PACKADAY. So what are you waiting for? Get your sleeper picks in today. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper for details. They're available in over 25 states nationwide. So get those sleeper picks in right now.
That's such a good question, man, because Hopper's played well too. Like, he looks the part and he's young.
Great.
Yeah. So, like, here's the thing about McDuffie is always going to fall into the category of not quite enough, right? Not quite big enough, not quite tall enough, not quite fast enough. But he's just a ball player.
Yep.
And nobody, when you look across, and I'm looking at Jack Campbell right there. What is he? 6'4", 260. I mean, the guy's an absolute Adonis. You know what I mean? I'm talking about the Detroit Lions linebacker.
Yeah,
from Iowa. Yeah, he's an absolute freak of nature, you know. So when you look over the prototype, or you know what the Lions got, or what, you know, what they draft, or what the Bears brought in with either one of their star linebackers. The kid from the Bills is 6'5", 249. I mean, he's a goddamn monster. So when you look at all of these different players, it's like nobody's ever satisfied with that, even though I think he is such a good player, and I've said that for years on this show. Having said that, with the way the offenses are playing now in 12, having two linebackers that are absolute top level guys, or, you know, we talked about it, are these guys just below Fred and Roquan? I think like Quay was just like, they're right there, you know, and Cooper's right there. Like, having those guys, I think now makes up for the fact that we don't have a star 3 technique.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think I bring him back as well. He's a team captain. He wears the green dot on the back of his head, on the helmet, I should say. You know, he continues to get better year over year, and I think he's playing good enough football. And you just have enough good athletes and players at that position. I'm not worried about having Quay, Cooper, McDuffie, and Hopper give me all the depth at that position that you can give me. I think I'd probably lean towards bringing him back as well.
Yeah. If McDuffie, I always hope from a guy like McDuffie that McDuffie goes and gets a starting job somewhere and gets paid a little bit of money. Like, honestly, because I think I just think he's a really good football player.
I do too.
And I just completely understand why a personnel guy does what he does. I just don't agree with it, but I completely understand, like, hey man, we got a policy here. Like, if you're not 6'4", you know, 240, or run a 4.2, like, we're not putting you on the field, you know, as a starter. We're not going to pay you this kind of money, whatever the case may be. Right. But it's just, you've got some guys with very, very unique physical skill sets, and you want to give your coaching staff like the best clay possible to make a good player. And Quay and Cooper are, you know, for all intents and purposes, like, physically freaks of nature, and they're both turned into, I mean, Quay Walker, man, like, I don't want to belabor it, but like, this year, how much better is he than he's ever been?
A good step. I mean, a good step better.
We would talk about him on the show and be like, God, can you make a tackle, you know, before the guy gets 9 yards deep? And for literally years. Yep. And now it's like, this guy is just an absolute animal. You know, he's just got it. And he's got the, you know, like you said, he's the signal caller. He's such a good, it looks like he's such a good communicator on the field, and he's so decisive in his play now. And again, that, to me, that's coaching, but it's also a guy who's just like, enough. I'm going to figure this shit out, and I'm going to be who I should be. I'm going to be who I was destined to be right now. And that's what I love about watching guys like that develop. So much fun.
There were reports, if I remember correctly, of like, he was very hard on himself at times, and it seemed like maybe his confidence, you know, kind of wavered. And I think you could almost see that on the field at times. And now it just feels like he's playing with tremendous confidence. There's no question. And again, I think you start seeing linebackers around this point in their career, now that they've seen everything, because it is a whirlwind. It's a thankless position. Every offensive coordinator is trying to put you in no man's land, and, you know, to just read and react and be able to go out and play, I think is a huge skill set. And I think Quay's doing it at a much better level.
Agreed. Love him.
By the way, Isaiah McDuffie, really quick. That was a player who was an unrestricted free agent this past offseason. And I think a lot of people just expected him to be gone, and Green Bay not to, you know, with already Hopper in hand and Quay and Cooper, just to let him walk. 2-year, $8 million deal looks really, really smart in hindsight. That was an unbelievable deal for Goody to get that done. They've got him next year under contract for less than $5 million. Good deal of business by Goody there. The other one, really quick too, getting that Christian Watson extension, the 1-year extension done before he came back from the injury. I mean, that's, if he hits free agency this year and they don't have that deal done, 25 mil per year, maybe. Like he's going to get something crazy, but the way he's played so
called
far.
when they did it. I remember you called that on the show and said this could turn out to be the biggest option contract in Packers short history here. And you're absolutely right. I mean, whatever he gets on the open market right now, you just think there's some teams that are going to go, we could use that on our squad. He's playing well.
It's so hard to find that profile of player. It's just it's a near impossible. Like 6'4", wins on the outside, blocks for you. Does the other routes. It's not just he's not in not to disparage him.
He's becoming a player. His menu is certainly, his route tree menu is certainly bigger than it was 2 years ago.
Yes,
certainly, right. It used to be like he was like the end around guy. You run him on a go, and now it's like, okay, he's the best deep out runner in the game right now. It feels like he's got the quick out and the deep out as well as anybody. You saw him catch that ball in a third play of the game, caught it in traffic on the deep curl.
Yep.
And then obviously has all the speed. There's always going to be inevitably some sort of injury question just because of the build, and he can't get around it, and there's nothing he can do about it. And if you gain 20 pounds of muscle, it wouldn't be the same player.
Yep.
Yeah, as far as building some body armor. I don't even know that it would matter.
Yep.
So there's always going to be that. But as far as, they have Jameson Williams over in Detroit, we get Christian Watt. You need a guy to go, if you look too long at the quarterback, I'm already by you. And he can do it as well as anybody.
Jameson got 3 years, $83 million in the offseason. Is it weird? Am I wrong to say I'd rather have, if all things healthy, I'd rather have Watson than Williams? Is that
I think if you took a poll of 100 people, you'd probably get 50-50.
Yeah.
So that's the market. I think you just hit it on the head, right? So was that a little over 27 a year?
Yeah. Yep. So, and they got him for a fraction of that on a 1-year extension, which I thought was smart for Watson at the time too, because you just came off an ACL and MCL. You don't know what your market's going to be coming off of that. If you all of a sudden play 2 games and get re-injured, you're not getting a fraction of what he got. So yeah, it was probably good business for both sides at the time, but it looks a whole hell of a lot better for Green Bay at the moment. I lied. I said we were going to talk a lot of Packers Bears, and then we got involved in a ton of other conversations, including Myles Garrett and Trent Williams, but it was totally worth it. But Packers Bears, first of all, Mike, let me just ask you, how good is this Bears team, and how big of a threat are they in the NFC North right now?
Well, it's hard to say how good they are because they keep winning these close games. And so that tells you that they believe in what they're doing, that they're well coached, that the message is being received, and they obviously have a generationally talented quarterback that nobody could tell by his performance last year, which, again, we talked about on the live show, like what a difference a coaching change makes and what a job Ben Johnson's done. But they have been awful for years, and they have stockpiled some really good players, and they finally brought in enough people at the offensive line position where we've got all the skill positions covered. We feel really good about this. And now we bring in two extra guys to shore up that line, give us some protection, create a run game. I think, as much as we're going to talk about Caleb Williams, though, like defensively, the job that they're doing in the turnover game is astounding. I mean, they were missing 3 lines. Think about your team missing your 3 starting linebackers. Yep. And you go like, what are you going to do next week? You're going to lose. You know what I mean? Like that the belief that they have, I think, in that locker room and bringing the right guys in. And I can't underemphasize this or overemphasize this enough is when you bring in a Montez Sweat, a Grady, and the next year you bring in Grady Jarrett, you bring in a Joe Thuney. Those guys, the leadership that you bring in TJ Edwards and company the year before. The leadership that it takes to guide these young, talented players on how to be a pro, that's not usually what a coach is doing. It's these guys, these mentors are what is, but that is a direct reflection on what Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson envisioned for this team and what kind of team they wanted to have and what kind of leadership and what mix of players that they wanted, right? And you talked about Kevin Byard, same thing, right?
Yep.
And CJ Gardner-Johnson, like that is a function of understanding what people can be in the room to help along your younger players to understand this game faster and get everybody on the right page. And they've just done, like, to be 10-2, man, it's just a freaking masterclass of how to coach the right way.
It really is. And yeah, I've seen a lot of people point out, somewhat rightfully so, the wins outside of Philly this past week have not been the greatest opponents in the world and things like that. Dude, in the modern NFL right now, and where we're seeing this, like every game, every week is just a battle. There's a couple really bad teams out there right now, but for the most part, man, you gotta work for every single win right now. Everyone's got at least 2 losses, and eventually I would assume everyone's gonna probably end up with at least 3 losses. It's a very difficult thing to play and get that many wins, regardless of what your schedule is. To come away with that many, I don't care about the point differential. I don't care about the strength of opponent. They're doing a lot of things right, and it's brought a lot of confidence for Ben Johnson, and I think a lot of buy-in for what he's trying to sell in his first year as a head coach.
Watch the Commanders last night.
Yeah,
Commanders. You get a couple injuries. Commanders supposed to be an elite football team, and they go for it. They're still fighting. They have the right people. It's just not working, and they've lost 6, 7 in a row now.
Yeah,
with some good players, and so you have to go at some stage. You got to go. Yeah, they're not going to win all these games every year. That's fair enough. Maybe there's a little bit of luck involved. Okay, fair enough. That doesn't always happen. But they've got a quarterback who is as good right now at creating off-schedule success as, I don't know, anybody who's doing it better than he is. Off schedule, hold your breath. He's leaving the pocket. Defense, all of a sudden, they gotta, they're all looking at their shoelaces. Like it's a scary deal right now. And try, as the Packers, go into this game, trying to understand how we're gonna deal with, not really like I got a plan to deal with the run game. I have a plan to deal with the pocket passing. I have a plan to deal with the play action. How do I deal with when he gets flushed and makes 2 or 3 people miss in the pocket, eludes, rolls out to the left, and then throws a 20-yard dart? It's like, how do I deal with that? And that's a category in the, this is what we're doing on Monday and Tuesday from a game planning standpoint. Like, that just took up a hell of a lot of time, man. It just took up, that's, you get your base down. What are we going to run for base runs or base defense? What are our checks? It's like, you got this whole circle over here. You just went when he leaves pocket. It's like, man. Yeah. We got there's a couple of new periods in practice tomorrow called periods.
Yeah, seriously. What to you is this Bears team missing to be a legitimate contender? I think I'll go for. I think if they could get one more big time pass rusher, like just as somebody that adds just an extra element of pass rush, and I think if Caleb Williams takes a half a step forward with just his rhythm, timing, accuracy within the base of the offense, I think that's honestly like the 2 things that's it. If they get those 2 things, like, look the hell out. That would start to scare me a little bit.
Well, they're creating all these turnovers, so I think you made a good point of does that continue?
Sustainable,
yeah. Is that a sustainable deal? I tend to think for a season it is, because I think that it's you can talk your way into creating more of those. I think the self-belief is huge there. I agree. Obviously, getting a better pass rusher, completely agree, and I think you could say that about a lot of football teams. But there's certainly one of them. They're really not getting the action inside that I thought they would. And then offensively, look, they have a running game now, and they have 2 really, really good wide receivers. They have a great pass catching tight end. Caleb Williams does miss plays. He does miss plays you don't expect him to miss. And the scary part, I think, for the league is that if you look at last year versus this year, it's a different quarterback, and he's getting better. And he's not missing as many.
Yep.
And, so to your point, I don't know that to your question, I don't know that there's anything that I think is missing right now. I just think they need, if this is week 13 or week 14, I think they probably need about 3-4 more weeks to get kind of caught up or get more up to speed. And then, I think I'll be interested to see what a playoff Ben Johnson looks like from a play calling standpoint. I'll be really interested to see that.
We're going to learn a lot about the Bears. We said it going into Philly. I think we did learn a lot about them there, but 2 games against Green Bay. They do have 1 game against Cleveland sandwiched in there, but then San Francisco and Detroit to end the season as well. That's not an easy stretch of games. We'll find out very quick where this Bears team is at, but a good first start by beating Philly in Philly this past week for sure.
No
3
doubt,
keys to the, or you don't have to do 3, just, quick keys to this one of what you're going to be watching for as we, look at tape this week and then obviously watch the game on Sunday.
Well, so we talked about it a little bit with the off schedule plays. I think the Packers secondary is doing such a good job of kind of pattern recognition and understanding what teams are trying to do and trying to take that away. Obviously, there's plays like you watch the Detroit game, they throw the seam to 85, like that was literally off of watching the Packers defense, right? So this is a really good matchup, I think, coordinator wise or head coach coordinator wise, with Jeff Hafley. I'm interested to see how we address Caleb Williams in the pass rush. I'm interested to see what our pass rush plan is, I guess is the best way to put that. I'm very interested to see now with this going into the second week with the same starting offensive line and having some, at least not success, but semblance of consistency in the way we try to approach the running game. I'll be interested to see how they deal with that with their linebacking crew out, and then what kind of opportunities from a passing standpoint we put Jordan Love in. Is it going to be like, I feel like Jordan Love throws a couple balls off his back foot a game, and I think quite frankly, like a lot of them just he doesn't get punished for it all the time, right? A lot of quarterbacks do that, but he's one that does that as well. I think this team punishes you if you do that. So I'll be interested to see where they decide to take those opportunities and those shots. Do they set it so it's more of a light switch, black, white, yes, no? Or is there a lot of gray area where like, well, if it's close, do it. If it's 2-on-1, we don't really care. We trust this guy. I think he does that sometimes. I would expect them to do it as much against this team.
Yeah, this is a very, very opportunistic defense. And if you give them an opportunity, they're going to take it. They're going to make you pay for it. And I think obviously turnovers every single game, we could talk about it. But when you're talking about the team with the best turnover differential in all of football by a large margin, it's very noteworthy, and they'll make you pay for it.
Yeah, no doubt. This is going to be a fun game. The run game, obviously, you talk about it. One more thing, I guess, is the Bears running game with Devontae Wyatt out, and then just trying to, Carl Brown being a little bit banged up, Carl Brooks, excuse me. How they deal with that. Again, if they go into their 12 personnel package or their 21 personnel package, actually feel okay about that because of our safety play. I get a little more skeptical about the situation when they get into a 10 and 11 personnel, because it's always going to be a light box, and moving those, undersized guys is a little bit easier. So it'll be interesting to see how we address that.
Have you seen the line for this one?
I haven't.
Do you want to guess?
Oh, let's see. Where is it at?
Green Bay.
Okay, so I'm gonna say Packers by 2.5.
Packers by 6.5 is the line in this game. Seems aggressive.
Well, I mean, the Bears keep winning these games, at the last minute, and it's exciting, but nobody ever thinks it's sustainable. But for me, that always is like, if you're winning a lot of close games, I think that means you're well coached, and well coached teams have a chance in every game. So like, yep. The Packers certainly had an impressive win last week. That if you were going to feel good about, at any point during the season, this is a really good point to feel good about the Packers, even though Devontae Wyatt got hurt.
I'm right there with you. Really, really quick. I know you don't have to have a take on this if you don't want. Do you have a Lane Kiffin take?
Well, I thought about it. I don't know why, but I love that Marty Smith was interviewing him like on like a dirt road, like next to a chain link fence.
I did see that. That was it was a police car in the background. It was just it was a scene.
It's like, what are we doing? Like, were you kicked out? Like, what are we doing?
Sports are so funny sometimes in the absurd situations that we get ourselves in some of this stuff where it's like it's crazy how you get into some of this stuff.
I thought Bill Cowher, and I didn't see the whole clip, but I thought Bill Cowher said this best, I think what we've done to sports sucks. I think what we've done to youth sports sucks. I love that players can get paid, but I hate that they can transfer if they don't like what's going on. I don't think we're building resiliency in our young athletes. And I think that a guy like Lane Kiffin has always been, and I don't know Lane Kiffin. I think he's probably the most fun guy at the bar and I'm sure, and he's brilliant.
Yep.
But Lane Kiffin seems like he's always been about Lane Kiffin, and I don't think this move would make me think, if I was a parent of a recruit going to any one of these schools, it wouldn't make me think for a second that he was anything about my kid. It was about him and his program. And for the Ole Miss team, who's going to the college football playoff, who's in the same conference as LSU, for that to happen, I don't know, man. Like I guess there's part of me is like Green Bay is a small market team. I know money and this and that and the other thing, but I go, why? I left Green Bay to go to Carolina, and I'm at 6 weeks in, I'm going like, well, shit, that was a mistake. You know what I mean? Like, you don't leave if you got a place that's a great place. For me, like, looking back at it, you're like, you don't leave it. So I don't know.
The thing that, and I don't follow college. The reason I follow college football is to watch the players that are coming to the NFL and get ready for the draft. That's my main thing. But in large part, it's due to this, where you've reached a point now where coaches are leaving the program when they're destined to be a playoff team. You see players stop playing in bowl games and in playoff games because they're going to be top draft picks coming out. And you get to these, what are supposed to be the most important games of the year, and guys aren't even playing in them. Like, it just, to me, has taken all the desire to watch college football out of it. Because if you all of a sudden get to that point where your team, like, if the Badgers were actually good and in that position and they actually made the playoffs, and then you finally get there and Luke Fickell just leaves for LSU, and your top players decide not to play because they have a draft coming up. I'm like, what the hell did I just watch? I mean, I can't imagine an NFL where we would get to the postseason and that LaFleur is actually like, actually taking a job with whatever team in the offseason, so not going to coach you in the playoffs. And Rasheed Walker, Quay Walker, Sean Ryan say, actually, I've got a contract coming up. I might end up going to a different team in the offseason, so I'm actually going to sit this playoffs out. Best of luck to you. It's absurd. It's insane to me how this stuff happens.
When I went to so I was at the Naval Academy, and obviously it's a big deal just to go to a bowl game if you're there, right? But, I remember it was such an honor, and it was such a big deal to go play with my team and go on this trip and go to this. We went to the Hula Bowl. It was Hawaii. We're playing Cal. It's like, who cares? But we cared. Yep. It was a big deal. And I think that the way that they've done this, and they've, because of college football playoffs, like, you don't really need bowl games anymore. And like in other words, the whole system, for me, I don't like college football. I don't think any of it makes sense anymore. I don't like it at all. I have a real problem with the coaches being having these guaranteed contracts, and then we get these reports of like the athletic directors don't know what they're doing, so they hire a Brian Kelly at LSU, and now they got to pay him $50 million to leave. And then they got to bring in, Lane and, pay him $84 million. And I'm not mad about the money, and I'm not mad that they fired Brian Kelly, and I'm not mad that they hired, but I don't like it. It's not compelling drama to me. I want to watch the football game.
Yep.
Right. And then I want to go do something else. Yep. And what the soap opera that media and, by way of function, like these programs are shoving in our face now is not interesting to me at all. And I think it really detracts from what I think is the important part of college sports, which is young student athletes, whether it's a women's soccer player or a wrestler or a football player, working their asses off to be great at something, good enough so that a college says, hey, you're so good that we want to give you an opportunity to come play for our team. Like, that was the highest honor that you could garner when I was a kid. And they've just taken it and they've completely bastardized it. And I don't like it anymore. It's not interesting to me.
It's just, I'm the exact same way. I would still not be as good for me, but it would even feel differently to me if there was like, once the national championship game is over, to like March 1st or whatever was your window where players could move and coaches could move during that time. Mm-hmm. So that at least everything you saw everything through the completion through the season, and like that season could at least exist on its own accord with that set of players and that coach, etc. But when you get to the point where you get to the playoffs and your players and coaches aren't even there and they've already left for another team, the whole thing just seems so completely backwards that could even happen at that point. To me, it seems absurd. But I don't know. I'm glad it's not a sport that I have had a ton of care and put a ton of time, effort, and energy into, because I feel like I would have lost something really important to me. But I mean, I love the days. Yeah, I love the days of Ron Dane and the bad. Like, I could turn on Brett for the Packers on Sunday and watch him throw all around, and then on Saturday I could turn in Ron Dane and see the Badgers run all over the place. And like, that was a hell of a weekend. I enjoyed those weekends a lot. So it's disappointing not to have that level of it, but it is what it is. I unfortunately don't see it changing anytime soon.
I think it's only going to get worse. It sucks, and yeah, there's other podcasts that go into detail about the NIL and the transfer portal and the NCAA taking away spots on rosters now and all of that. It's for another podcast, but it really is disgusting what the NCAA and what they've done really for 40 years to kind of fatten their own pockets while not rewarding the actual players or giving them an opportunity to go have a good meal or take their girlfriend out on a date or their boyfriend out on a date because they can't make any money. So all this stuff has just been bad for a long, long time. I guess the only good news with this is it's been, that the light's been shed on that a little bit. And hopefully, if at the end of this, Andy, if the NCAA was completely disbanded and lost all their power and the power went to the individual schools or conferences, I would actually be in favor of that, because I think that's such a bad and corrupt organization. But aside from that, it just has taken away a lot of the love and interest that I had as a kid growing up watching the sport.
I've actually been kind of on the same page of if the Big Ten, who has enough teams now, just said, screw it, we're done. We're just going to be the Big Ten. We're going to do our own thing. We're not going to do the NCAA. We're not going to play in any national championships or bowl games. We're going to end with a 8-team playoff or 6-team playoff in our own conference, and we're just sticking everything in conference and crowning a champion of the Big Ten at the end. I think I would actually enjoy
more
that.
than just having a Champions League.
Yeah,
right. It's not hard. It's not hard, but then it's rules are in place. You and I could do that in an afternoon on the back of a napkin. Two idiots could just do that on the back of a napkin and go, okay, we got it all figured out, guys. What the hell are we doing? But at least when USC and UCLA have to travel to the East Coast to play a volleyball game on a Thursday, I'm going, you guys are idiots. This is stupid. This is just absolutely stupid. But enough ranting. Sorry.
They know that the next thing is they'll find a way to ruin the NCAA March Madness tournament too, and that's when things are really going to hit the fan, Mike.
That's right.
Mike, I cannot thank you enough. Follow him at Mike Wall 68. You can find me at Andy Herman NFL. That's going to do it for us today. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.